Here's an example of how to construct a frequency distribution table using Statcrunch with data. So in this homework problem, it says we have data here. There are 20 different values, and it says construct a frequency distribution beginning with a lower class limit, so this is important, of 15, and use a class width of 6. So those are things that we're going to want to remember that we'll have to put into our Statcrunch. So the lower class limit again begins at 15, and the difference between the lower class limits is 6. You can see 15 plus 6 is 21, and so on. So we're going to open up Statcrunch, and we do that using this small rectangle near the data table, and it gives us the option to open it in 3 different things, and I'm going to choose Statcrunch. So here is the data. All of those 20 different numbers that we had previously seen are listed here. And so when we want to construct a data table, that's under Stat, it's a statistic, and then under Tables, and then we will choose Frequency. And I'm going to lead you a bit on a rabbit trail first, because when we do this and we click var1, that's the first column, the frequency table we have here gives us choices, and I'm going to choose frequency. But one thing that it doesn't allow us to do is it doesn't allow us to input that binning data. And so when I look at that, I think, well, let's just see what's going to happen. And when I hit compute, it makes a frequency distribution of the values that are repeated. It does tally them up, but because there are many different values that have things that are differing by just very small amounts. For example, the difference between 22.2 and 22.6 is not large, but it puts them as 2 different frequencies. So what we want to do is put these in bins of larger clusters. And before we compute our table, then what we have to do is turn on the binning first. So I'm going to go backwards, and now before I do Stat, I'm going to go to Data. And under Data, it has this option down at the bottom, bin. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to do is first select which column is going to get worked on. It's the variable 1. And instead of automatically, I'm going to use fixed bins. So in this problem, it said that the first bin was going to start at 15. And then it said the bin width, which is also sometimes called the class width, was 6. And bin edges, for our purposes, it's good for us to use the left endpoint, because in the original bins that were shown in the problem, it went from 15 to 20.9, and so we really want it to be anchored at that 15 rather than being anchored at the right endpoint, which is the 20.9. We really don't want that. So I'm going to put include left endpoint, and then compute. And what it's done is it's added a new column. And so it has said that this number, 17.7, fits in the bin or the category of 15 to 21. And the number 27.4 fits in the bin or category of 27 to 33. So it's made a limited number of categories, and each one of those categories is 6 units wide. Okay. So now that we have these categories, and again, there are really only 5 different types: the ones that start at 15, the ones that start at 21, ones that start at 27, and so on. But because there are not so many different types, now when we go to our Stat, when we try to construct the frequency table, we're going to use the second column. So again, Stat, Tables, and we're making a frequency table. But if we use the second column, the bin var, then we will be able to construct this. And if we ask it to compute, now you can see it's not all over the place in 16 or 18 different classes. It has only 5 classes, and every class has a width of 6 units. We can go on from here. If we wanted to construct a histogram, then what we could do is go over to Graph, and then for the histogram, We're going to click that option. And this time, the histogram does not allow us to use bin var. But what it does allow us to do is, I'm going to, again, construct a frequency histogram, but it allows us to enter information for the bins. So here under bins, it says start at, and in this case, we're going to start at 15, and the bin width is going to be 6. So the beauty of a histogram is that it allows you to enter the bin size and the start within that calculation. But when you construct that frequency table, which is not a histogram, it does not allow you to do that, and you had to do it manually. But here, we didn't have to do that extra. We're just going to see what it'll give us. And now you can see it's constructed that histogram. And this is a graph. It's essentially a bar graph of the same table that we had just previously constructed. If you ever wanted to change the bin width or other things, you can go to Options, Edit, and we can go back and, for example, if we wanted to change the bin width to 4, we could do that here. And you can see then we have this information which is broken down into more classes and more bins.